Hi everybody, happy full flower moon and happy Mother's Day. Today Andrew and I are back to offer a virtual gathering. We will be talking about the New Creation Storybook here with the founder of the Earthways Foundation and the author of these beautiful books. So Andrew, thank you so much. Let's go ahead and start with our first question. So Andrew, from attending your Sunday full moon gatherings, I noticed that you always begin with a grounding meditation or a drumming. Why is that?
The gatherings that we do are about recognizing the earth as a sacred entity. So a meditation is a way of falling into that sense of respect for the earth and for the topics that we're going to bring up, because life is a spiritual journey. The earth is a sacred place. Everything else that we do, even though it's scientifically based, has that as its context. I like to also open, in addition to a meditation or a drumming, which we could have done here, but we're not, I like to have a few philosophical sayings from past philosophers. One is, the Tao and its many manifestations arise from the same source, subtle wonder within mysterious darkness. What that says is, and this is from 600 BC, Taoism, and what that says is subtle wonder and mysterious darkness is what the creation is about. The creative source is something we can't define. We can call it God, we can call it Great Spirit, we can call it any number of things, but we don't know what it is. What we do know is that what we see, the manifestations, the many manifestations in that quote, are the manifestations, the creations of whatever that creative source is, of whatever God has made, of whatever Great Spirit has made. So that's the context of everything we do in relationship to understanding the world in a sense that will help heal the damage that environmental chaos is causing.
How can this coronavirus fit into your teaching?
Yeah, the coronavirus is certainly the most present and pressing thing in today's life and society. I've been talking for years about transitioning into what I call the ecological epoch, and that is a time when how we behave is consistent with keeping the earth healthy. And in this case, we have to restore the earth before we can keep it healthy, because we've got a lot of restoration to do, not just sustainability, but restoration. So the virus can be looked at as a warning signal, a red flag for what would happen when environmental tragedies start occurring, because they are going to start occurring unless we take action. Now, there are two ways that we can, as humans, as a species, can deal with the environmental chaos that's building up. One is we can use the information we have, which is solutions to all the problems, and transition gracefully into a new era of health, or the planet will do it to us. And that is, if we go on as business as usual, we keep dumping our waste into the atmosphere and the oceans, then there's going to be a point when the planet can't provide for us anymore. There are too many people, it's too fragile a situation that if some major catastrophe occurs, extra droughts, extra hurricanes, extra weather events, or even some nuclear accident or bomb, if any one of those things occurs, the fragility of the system might cause the system, probably will cause the system to collapse. That's what I mean by the planet doing it to us, because we've overextended ourselves. We're using more than the planet actually is offering. So we can look at the effects of corona, staying at home, the economy, declining by such a large percentage. All these effects are a premonition of what could happen with an environmental disaster. And at some point, those disasters are going to be much worse than this virus or any virus. We can deal with viruses. Can we deal with some major ecological catastrophe?
Mm. What can we learn from this virus and our need to shelter at home?
You know, it's actually an opportunity to learn a great deal. The pace has slowed. Granted, it's thrown a tremendous number of people out of work. And granted, it's a tragedy for those who are losing their lives, many, many, many people losing their lives. But let's look at the situation, how we're behaving, what's going on in the world, not with the virus in mind, but let's say we actually chose to live this way. So let's put the virus aside, and let's say we as a community, a planetary community, said we're going to slow down and live the way we lived during that virus pandemic. What does that look like? Number one, there's a fascinating thing that happened just a few weeks ago. Oil contracts for oil supply around the world trade every month, and the contracts come due, and people complete the contracts. The price of oil in the May contract fell to below zero. What does that mean? It means there was too much oil and nobody wanted it. As a matter of fact, amazingly, people had to pay to get rid of their oil. The oil tankers were full, the storage was full, they still owned oil they had to get rid of, they had to pay people to take it. It's an amazing story. What does that mean? It means that the slowdown that's occurred was enough to eliminate the use of fossil fuels. Now, we have wind production, we have solar production. That's not enough when we gear up to run all the industry, because the industry is geared down. But it shows that it's possible. We can live without fossil fuels. Fossil fuels are the number one biggest contributor to the major climate chaos that we're creating.
Andrew, what is your personal experience sheltering at home?
Yes, well, first let me follow on with your last question a little bit. That's I thought of something else I'd like to say, and that is we can use the slowdown as a metaphor for how we could live in a way that is healthy for the planet. Slowdown meaning, there's less traffic, there's a slower pace, there's more family life, all the sorts of things that I think a lot of people are experiencing are positive in a way. And so, to answer your current question, my experience of sheltering at home has been positive. In some respects, it's improved my life. How? Number one, I gave up 3 bad habits that were part of my busy life. I won't say what they all are, I'll plead the fifth on that. But I lost 10 pounds, partially as a result of that. I've had a lot more time with my kids because they've had to stay at home and do schoolwork from home, and because they've needed help with schoolwork because they don't have the teachers to ask questions as readily. I've been spending a lot of time, especially with my son Leo, and it's been great for me, and he's 16 and we haven't had this amount of time together in years. So I've enjoyed that. So, I'm calmer. Life is a slower pace. Family life is better. I'm healthier. And it's been great in that respect. Now, I also need to keep in mind for everyone else that, again, remember, we're putting the virus aside, but we're still doing what we're doing for this discussion. There are a lot of people out of work. Even if it's not for the virus, it's for whatever reason that our metaphor is creating, because we're living this lifestyle because we've decided to live it in the metaphor that we're creating. So that's always got to be kept front and center. Their situation probably isn't a positive situation, so we need to be able to solve that for them and for everyone.
On this same topic of sheltering at home, how do you see the larger picture in all of this?
Well, again, let me go back to our metaphor that we're choosing to shelter at home. We're choosing this lifestyle, and when it's not being forced on us by the virus in this particular imagination that we're creating. Let's look around. The air is clean, not cleaner, but clean. There's a lot less pollution. That means that there are a lot of people who might have died from respiratory diseases that aren't dying. There's a lot less traffic. That means that a lot of people that would have died in traffic accidents are not dying. Wildlife is starting to take over some of the places that we've abandoned. For example, we're not allowed to go into the national parks, and there are all these reports of the wildlife in those areas moving in to all the places that the humans used to populate in their tourism. We mentioned the oil situation. There's very little need for oil. And what else? The bird songs, the birds. Noise pollution. The birds, you can hear the birds, okay? And what about the ocean pollution? What about the fact that because of the reduced activity, the ocean isn't getting inundated with plastic waste and all kinds of other waste? But we know that plastic in the ocean is a remarkably durable and long-lasting problem. So all these things are part of the bigger picture that, because in this example we chose to shelter at home for a while, these results occurred. These are all positive results. There are issues that need to be solved, like all the job losses that happen because of our choosing to shelter at home. How do we restore those? How do we provide for those people? How do we create new jobs so that they're not left out in the cold while we're mentioning all these positive things?
What do you propose for society at large in terms of progression and progressive problem solving and change?
So let's stick with our example of a worldwide decision to shelter at home for some period of time as we address these issues. If we stick with local community, we reduce the amount of moving around the planet, the air travel. We have Zoom meetings. They will work. You don't have to get on an airplane. We don't have to take so many automobile trips. We can reduce fossil fuels as a result. We can adopt our community as our local village. And if you use the examples which many, say permaculture philosophy does, of a watershed being your locality, meaning the area that all the water that falls flows into a certain area, that's your region. And in that region you can produce more local food, you can have more of a community-based thing, and you don't need to travel so much, and you don't need to take so many car trips. So in this model, also we'd be much better off with a lower population than 8 billion people. Now, it's been shown that if you educate women and girls around the world, especially in developing countries where they have less choice, they will automatically reduce the family size. If the planet only has to care for, say, 6 billion people 20 years from now as the next generation develops, if people have an average of 1.6 children of family instead of 3.1 or whatever the number is now, the population will naturally reduce. We can easily handle 6 billion people and provide abundance for all those people. All we need to do is understand how to use local economies, shelter at home a little bit, and then share the abundance that the planet offers.
This new social organization that you envision, who wins?
Families win, people win, local communities win, local food production wins. The big winner, of course, is the planet. The planet can become healthy again. But I think individuals who want to enjoy more family time, who want to enjoy more local community, Those are the big winners here, and it's all very possible. And for me, I think that's a better lifestyle.
In that new social organization, who loses?
Yes, there are losers. But first, let me mention one of the winners that I left out in your last question, and that is family businesses, small businesses. Because they're local, because they're supported by local people, they're big winners. So we have a lot more family, we have a lot less big corporations. Who loses? Big corporations that have to ship their goods all over, all the time. Shipping companies that go from Asia to America to bring all these goods and services. Local production, local consumption answers that question. All the travel industries, the car industries, they all would lose in some respect, but they can be replaced with other kinds of jobs. Large corporations don't need to control our destiny, and if they are the losers of a new society, then so be it, because it benefits the people of the planet, not the finances and the money interests of the planet. So along with that, the money interests of corporations are the main financiers of government. They put the money up to choose the candidates. We vote for candidates, but those candidates have all been chosen by the money behind getting them to the point of us seeing them to vote or not vote. So we don't really choose the candidates. The government, the finance industry is the one that puts up the candidates for us to decide. Now we get some small choice, but we don't get the original, larger choice. So now the big category of loss that we need our ingenuity to deal with is the lost jobs.
How do we support and pay for this new lifestyle? And with the massive job losses, where do all the new jobs come from?
That's probably the biggest issue of this proposed new society, and that is you can see that as the economy has contracted by 20 or 30%, there are millions of people that are out of work. Now, over time, there's a transition period. We have to support those people in creating these new endeavors, these family businesses, these local agricultural efforts. All the kinds of new structure that's needed is a transition period, and the top 1% of people control something like 50% of the wealth, not only in this country but in other developed countries as well. That wealth has to be shared during this transition period, which is really what's happening now with coronavirus. We're using $3 trillion or more dollars to help support the working people who are out of work. So a transition will require that, but the biggest thing is we don't have the answers to that question, but we can get the answers. Why? Because we're remarkably creative, and our ingenuity will help us to solve that problem. 30% or 40% of the people need a new way to earn a living in a more localized economy. We can create it, especially if the population is reduced from 8 billion to 6 billion. Now, there's a big opportunity for local agriculture and other sorts of things that don't need huge corporate agriculture. Local businesses, that sort of thing. New environmental energy, jobs in solar, jobs in wind turbines, all those sorts of things. So I don't have the answer, but I do know that our ingenuity can solve that problem.
Thank you everybody for tuning in. Happy Mother's Day, happy full moon. Thank you, Andrew, for answering these questions. Drew and I from 5 Cents Collective are going to be attaching a link to a free meditation that you can enjoy. It's a sound healing in substitution of the grounding meditation that we would do here at Andrew's home. So thank you all very much. Have a beautiful day.
Thank you, Kirscha. Bye, everyone.